Have you ever really thought about why you bought that exact coffee this morning? Or why last night was a movie on the couch night instead of a night out? Well, today we're going to be detectives. We're going to solve the mystery of your own choices. And yeah, it sounds simple, but trust me, there's a whole world of economic thinking hiding just under the surface of every decision you make. All right, let's get into it. Come on, you know the feeling. You're standing there in the aisle, wallet out, just staring. So many options. Juice or soda? This brand of chips or that one? Should we spend our money on a movie tonight or maybe grab a beer with friends? These little decisions, they feel personal. But you know what? They are literally what makes the entire economy tick. And they all kick off with a fundamental economic puzzle. And that puzzle, it all starts with a problem that every single one of us deals with every single day. It's called scarcity. And honestly, if you want to crack the case of your own choices, you have to understand this one core idea first. So here it is, the heart of the matter. You've got a certain amount of money in your bank account, right? It's a finite number. But the list of things you want? Oh man, that list is practically infinite. A new phone, a vacation, that cool jacket, concert tickets, it just goes on and on. And this clash between your limited cash and your unlimited wish list forces you into a corner where you have to choose. Now, economics starts with a simple assumption. You're trying to make those choices in a way that makes you as happy as you can possibly be with the money you have. Okay, so if the name of the game is maximize happiness, how in the world do you measure something like that? I mean, you can't just hook yourself up to a happiness-o-meter. This is where we need a new tool for our investigation. It's a concept economists call utility. And it's really just a fancy word for the satisfaction or happiness you get from something. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. We're not just looking at your total happiness. We're looking at the extra little bit of happiness you get from the very next thing you consume. That's called marginal utility. Think about it with ice cream. That first scoop is pure bliss, right? But how much more happiness does that second scoop add? That more? That's your marginal utility. It's all about the change from one to the next. And we can see this perfectly right here. Let's look at this table for hamburgers. That very first burger you eat gives you, say, 10 units of satisfaction. Fantastic. Now you're still hungry, so you have a second one. Wow, that one was even better. It added 15 units of happiness, bringing your total up to 25. But look what happens with the third burger. You're starting to get full. It's still good, but it only adds 5 more units of satisfaction. See that? The extra happiness you get is changing with every single burger. This is a huge clue. And this leads us to one of the most fundamental laws in economics, the principle of diminishing marginal utility. All that means is that the more you have of something, the less extra satisfaction you get from the next one. That first slice of pizza on a Friday night, it's a 10 out of 10. The 8th slice, you might even be feeling a little sick. The enjoyment, that marginal utility, goes down. So we know our happiness from each extra item changes. Cool. But how does that help us decide between two totally different things, like going for a beer versus seeing a movie? Well, this brings us to our next major clue in this mystery. And here's the secret sauce. You, as a smart consumer, are always, whether you realize it or not, trying to squeeze the absolute most happiness, the most utility out of every single rand in your wallet. You're trying to spend your money where it's going to give you the biggest happiness payoff. It's like you're running a constant subconscious calculation. Let's actually run the numbers. Imagine you've got R40 to spend. A beer is R10, and a movie ticket is also R10. Simple enough. Now, where do you spend your first R10? Well, the first beer gives you 90 units of happiness. At R10, that's 9 units of happiness per rand. The first movie only gives you 40 units, or 4 per rand. Easy choice, right? You buy the beer. Now you've got R30 left. What's next? The second beer gives you 70 units, or 7 per rand. Still way better than that first movie, so you buy another beer. Okay, R20 left. Now it gets interesting. The third beer gives you 40 units of happiness, which is exactly 4 per rand. And hey, the first movie also gives you 4 per rand. It's a tie. So with your last R20, you get that third beer and your first movie. You spent all R40, and the bang for your buck on the last beer and the last movie is exactly the same. You've done it. You've maxed out your happiness. And that little story reveals the really elegant math behind it all. You've reached your happiest possible point, what economists call consumer equilibrium, when the happiness per rand you get from the last of item A is equal to the happiness per rand you get from the last of item B. It's like you've perfectly balanced the happiness scales. So that's one way to solve the puzzle, with numbers and tables. But what if you're thinking, I can't put a number on my happiness. No worries. Economists have a completely different way to look at this, a much more visual way. We can actually draw a map of our choices. First up, we have the budget line. Just think of this as the map of what's possible. It's a straight line that shows every single combination of, say, movies and beers you could possibly buy if you spend every single cent of your budget. Anything on the line you can afford. Anything inside the line you can afford, but you'd have money left over. And anything outside the line, well, that's off limits for now. Next, we have the map of your desires. This is your indifference curve. Imagine one point on this curve is, say, 5 Cokes and 1 bag of chips, and another point is 2 Cokes and 5 bags of chips. If you'd be equally happy with either of those bundles, then they are on the same indifference curve. You are literally indifferent between those two options. They give you the exact same level of total happiness. And these desire maps, they have a few simple rules that just make sense. For one, higher curves mean more happiness, right? Because more is usually better. They always slope downwards because if you get more of one thing, you have to give up a little of the other to stay at the same happiness level. They can never, ever cross because that would break logic, and they bow inwards, which is just a graphical way of showing that diminishing marginal utility we talked about before. So here's the magic. You take the map of what's possible, your budget line, and you overlay it on the map of what you want, your indifference curves. Your goal is to get to the highest, happiest indifference curve you can. But you're stuck on your budget line. So what's the best you can do? It's that one single point where your budget line just kisses the highest indifference curve it can possibly reach. That is your sweet spot. That's consumer equilibrium. It's the perfect harmony between what you can afford and what you most desire. Now, up to this point, we've built this picture of a perfectly logical, calculating consumer. It's a beautiful model. But are we really like that all the time? Well, this is where the story takes a twist, thanks to a field called behavioral economics. You see, behavioral economists argue that, hey, we're human. Our brains aren't supercomputers. Our rationality is bounded. We can't possibly analyze every option, so we take mental shortcuts. Our willpower is bounded, which is why that piece of cake looks so good when you're on a diet. And our self-interest is bounded. We're not always looking out for number one. We donate money, we help people, even when there's no direct benefit to us. And these little brain quirks lead to some really weird behavior. For example, the endowment effect. Studies show that the moment you own something, even if you got it for free, like a coffee mug, you start to value it more. If someone then tries to buy it from you, you'll ask for a higher price than you would have been willing to pay for it just a minute before. Just owning it makes it more valuable in your mind. How weird is that? Okay, so we've got the rational model, we've got the quirky human brain model, but why does all this deep diving into our own individual choices really matter for the big picture? Well, because when you take your choices and my choices and everybody else's choices and you add them all up, you get one of the most important concepts in all of economics: demand. In fact, we can see it happen right here. Let's go back to our map. Imagine the price of a movie ticket suddenly drops. What happens? Your budget line swings outwards. All of a sudden, you can afford more stuff. This lets you jump to a whole new, higher, happier indifference curve. You find a new sweet spot. And if you put a dot where your old choice was, and then you put a dot where your new choice is, and you connect them, you've just created a demand curve. It slopes down because as the price falls, you're able to reach a better equilibrium where you consume more of that thing. It's that simple. And this whole way of thinking helps us finally solve classic old riddles, like the paradox of value. Why is water, which we need to live, so cheap, while diamonds, which are totally unnecessary, are crazy expensive? It all comes back to marginal utility. The total utility of water is massive. Life would end without it. But because there's so much of it, the marginal utility, the value of one more glass, is super low. For diamonds, the total utility is pretty small, but they're so rare that the marginal utility of getting just one more is incredibly high. And price is driven by marginal utility, not total utility. So there you have it. The logic, the math, and the weird psychology that's happening inside your head every time you pull out your wallet. The economic model says you're a super rational calculator, but we also know you're a human with quirks and biases. So the next time you're in a store, staring at that shelf, ask yourself, what's really driving this decision? The cold hard logic or something else entirely? The mystery, it turns out, is always there. And now you have the clues to start solving it for yourself.